Owl, this is killing me. My parents keep telling me stories from back then, like how I tried to hunt the penguins at the zoo, or how my first word was pizza. But in my head, there's just nothing. It's like someone took an eraser to the first 3 years of my life. Am I a glitch in the system?
No, Hoody. Your system is actually quite brilliant. The first years of your life still exist, but they're in a library that was completely remodeled while it was still open for business. I'm going to show you why your brain didn't forget the first chapters of your story, but locked them away in a secret archive instead. Every human being has this blackout in their biography. It's called infantile amnesia. We know today that babies can certainly learn and remember things. A 6-month-old baby still knows how to move a toy weeks later. But this information disappears over time into a labyrinth from which there is no return. Construction in the archive, when new shelves destroy everything. Imagine your brain is a library being massively expanded while it's still operating. The area responsible for archiving is called the hippocampus. In your first 2 years, this place is an absolute construction zone. Your brain is producing new nerve cells at an insane rate during this time, a process called neurogenesis. The problem? The construction workers are ruthless. Every time a new stable shelf, a new neuron, is hammered into the ground, it tears down the foundations of the old temporary shelves. Your early memories of crawling or your first toy were sitting on these shaky scaffolds. When the hippocampus started becoming truly professional, it simply bulldozed the space occupied by the old records. Your brain sacrificed the foundation of your childhood to make room for the massive library of your adult self. But even if a few books had survived this remodel, there'd be an even bigger problem. A library without staff is just a pile of printed paper. And I'm going to show you now why your internal search engine clocked in way too late. The missing librarian, a structural problem. To find a memory, you need someone who knows where it is. In your head, that's the prefrontal cortex, the chief librarian. She's responsible for specifically retrieving and organizing information. The problem? In a baby, this area is still completely underdeveloped. The librarian simply wasn't on duty during those first years. The baby brain was busy writing books and tossing them into the aisles, but there was no one to catalog them or provide an index. The information might be lying somewhere at the very bottom of the basement, under a pile of rubble, but without the librarian, you'll never find it. Your childhood is like the internet without Google. The data is there, but the search query goes nowhere. And it gets even more radical. Your brain isn't some friendly collector who keeps everything. It's a cold-blooded efficiency expert who regularly walks through the aisles with a flamethrower. Watch what happens when the great spring cleaning begins. Synaptic pruning, the merciless decluttering. At the beginning, your brain creates millions of connections, a wild tangle of paths between the shelves. But to become fast and smart, it can't keep this messy wiring. It initiates what's known as synaptic pruning. You can think of it as a radical decluttering operation. A manager walks through the aisles and asks about every book. Was this read in the last week? No? Into the shredder. Since you don't have complex concepts as a toddler, these early wordless impressions are classified as useless ballast. Your brain clears the chaotic piles of notes from the floor to make room for the massive new departments for language and logic. Your first chapters were simply sorted out so that the place runs smoothly today, instead of collapsing under its own clutter. But how do you even write a book that you can read later? You need a script that you'll still understand years down the line. And that's exactly why your baby memories seem like an encrypted message to your current self. The empty spines. Why we need language. Imagine standing in a library where none of the books have titles on their spines. You just see white paper. That's a baby's memory. Without language, your brain has no tool to give structure to experiences. Words like yesterday, park, or dog are the labels we stick onto the books. It's only through language that we can build a story. Studies show as soon as children start talking to their parents about what they've experienced, remember the duck in the park? They start to permanently fix those moments on the shelf. Language is the glue that threads the pearls of your memory onto a string. Without that string, the pearls simply roll away and disappear into the cracks in the floor. But the most important thing for any good story is still missing: the protagonist. Because who is supposed to actually experience the story if the name on the library card hasn't even been decided yet? This is the moment the story needs a hero. The missing author. The problem with the I. This one is a real mind-bender. To have an autobiography, you need a self-concept. You have to realize that you are the one currently eating this cookie. Babies don't have this I feeling during the first 18 to 24 months. They don't recognize themselves in the mirror. They think the child in the mirror is a strange playmate. Only when this self-awareness awakens can the brain start to link experiences to a central person, to you. Before that, the camera was on, but there was no director to edit the scenes into a movie. The library was nameless. Even if we dug up a book from the basement right now that survived the remodel and the decluttering, you still wouldn't be able to read it, because your brain has lost the code. It's like trying to open an ancient file format on a modern supercomputer. The forgotten cipher. The format problem. A baby doesn't store its world in words, but in raw sensations. The smell of milk, the warmth of a blanket, the bright light. Let's call this format the cipher of the senses. When you try to remember today, your brain uses software based on logic and terms, but this software can no longer decode the old sensory files. The data might still be buried deep in the system somewhere, but your modern consciousness has lost the key to translate it. You're looking for text where only feelings are stored. But hold on, Hoody. Just because you can't read the texts anymore doesn't mean the archive is completely empty. There is a part of your library that never forgets. It doesn't write books, but it shapes the atmosphere of the entire room. They call it the ghost in the machine. The scent in the aisles. What your body doesn't forget. This is the eeriest part of the science. While your conscious mind, the explicit memory, has deleted the facts, your body remembers perfectly. It's called implicit memory. It doesn't store stories, but reactions. That inexplicable fear of dogs, or that deep sense of security with a certain piece of music, those are emotional echoes hanging in the aisles of your library, like an old scent. You can't find the book for it, but the mood is there. You don't have these memories in your head anymore. You are these memories. They form the invisible architecture of your entire personality. But the question now is it the same for every person in the world? Surprise! It depends entirely on what the library rules look like in your culture. I'm going to show you now why some people can start writing down their story much earlier than others. Cultural archive rules. Why Maori start earlier? Scientists have found that the timing of your first memory depends heavily on how your parents talk to you. Among the Maori in New Zealand, who have a massive tradition of storytelling, children often remember things from the time they were just 2.5 years old. In cultures where there is less talk about an individual's past, the archive often doesn't start until age 4 or later. The way your environment teaches you to tell stories determines how quickly your internal librarian starts her duty. Your memory is not a fixed fate, but a system shaped by training and culture.
Wow. So my first 3 years aren't actually gone. They're just the invisible walls I live in today. I'm basically the sequel to a story whose beginning I can't read, but I can feel it.
Exactly, Hoody. Be glad the archive was remodeled. Otherwise, you wouldn't have room for your pizza expertise today.
And what about you? What's the very first scent or the first image that pops up in your archive? Tell me in the comments. I'm extremely curious about your earliest stories.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next deep dive.